Well, God bless you. I'm glad to have you here today. It's a wonderful Sunday to be here. Yesterday was awesome. Thank you to everyone who helped pull off our Easter egg hunt. This building, this area, whatever we would call it, our property, what word am I trying to say right now, was crawling with people and butterflies. It was amazing. It was a wonderful time for everyone except for a couple of the butterflies. But, whatever, it's butterflies. And so, but thank you for... Oh, we got some people are really tied up about the butterflies. It was a wonderful time, and so thank you for everyone for pulling it off, and thank you for being with us today. You could have been anywhere, and you're here with us, and we're glad to have you. But one of the things that is interesting, as you read through the gospel accounts, the Bible has 4 different books of the Bible that tell the life and death of Jesus Christ. They're called Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And all of them get to the point where Jesus dies on the cross, and then there's this aftermath. There's this storytelling that just keeps going after the main character is dead. And what's fascinating about every one of them is that they always have this same feature to them. The people are feeling a lot of things. The people are thinking a lot of things. But they're not confident or even happy about Jesus. It gets to be the 3rd day after Jesus has died, and none of them ever are going, let's get ready. This is it. We've been doing a drum roll for 3 days now. We're about to have the band come in. Like, none of them are thinking that. They're walking. They're amazed. They're wondering. They're frightened. They're hiding in houses. They're doing a lot of things. They're downcast. Like the disciples we read about today, they're downcast. They're lost. They're aimless at this time. And God's about to do His biggest thing yet. Now, my wife and I love detective novels. I read about one every 4 years. She reads about 30 every year. And so we have the same enjoyment of them. And what's funny is as you begin to read more of them, you realize that in detective, like inside the genre, as the thing kind of developed, there are these rules. They actually call them the 10 Commandments of detective novels. And there's these rules that you have to play by if you're going to write a detective novel, because a detective novel is a game. It's a challenge from a writer to the reader. Can you figure out who did it? And so there are these rules that go into play. And there's moments where something that could be crazy and absurd and off the wall happened over here, and that's what caused the big murder or whatever happened. But if that thought ever comes to your mind, you just get to take it and toss it and put it out of mind because it's against the rules. And so you know that's not going to happen in a detective novel. And very often, what you have, the rules you've set for yourself, the ideas you have put in place for what is and is not allowed to happen will dictate what you're going to think about the things that are happening around you. And as we read these stories, as we hear about how these people wrestled with the death of Jesus Christ, one of the things we have to understand is they just simply did not see Jesus doing what Jesus did. It seemed like it broke all the rules. So that even when there's these stories where all the evidence is just kind of laid out in front of them, they're going, whatever it was, whatever it is that happened, it's not that. And so these disciples come and they're wandering and they're sad and they're downcast and they're brokenhearted. And all their hopes have been dashed and shattered. And the Bible says they're just not seeing what Jesus is trying to do. It's kind of like all the clues have been made known. And all the people in their smoking jackets and all the wealthy people in the countryside of England have gotten all the people in a room together, and the clues are there. And right when it comes time to point at who did it, who is the great murderer in this story, it's like there's nothing to point at. It's like a vapor. It's like a figure that's there but not there. And so when they start saying, well, it says this, and it says that, and it says this, and it says that, they go, it all adds up to, we don't know. Because whatever it was breaks the rules. It breaks the rules of how we see this world. And so whatever it is that's going on, that God is at work doing, even his own disciples cannot see. And as is a theme in the crucifixion, it's this theme in the resurrection where God's about to show up and he's going to make what's happening on the outside look like what's going on the inside. You can't see on the inside what I'm doing. You can't follow what I'm trying to say. That I'm going to show up and be right in your face and you won't be able to see it. And so Jesus, they have all the evidence. They've heard the news. The tomb is empty. Some of our women went to go finish burying Jesus, and there's no one there. They even saw angels. They even saw an empty tomb. The grave clothes are there. And we just don't know what's happening. And we're still sad. And the evidence doesn't go, maybe he rose from the dead. And so Jesus goes, Jesus himself came and walked along with them. The evidence isn't enough. Maybe I'll be enough. But he does this little trick. He keeps them from seeing him. Well, that's kind of unfair, right? Like, come on, you know what I mean? But he's driving home a point. He's doing this over and over and over again. He's going, all right, listen, you're not seeing it, so why don't I just kind of play on this theme of you not being able to see me, and I'll just stand here right in your face and you won't even tell. You'll be walking along the road and I'm right there next to you and you're downcast all the way. You're thinking you've been left to your own devices even though I'm right on the road next to you. And he starts testing him. He goes, all right, okay, so you don't understand. You don't see, you don't know what's going on. Why don't you tell me what you've seen so far? Why don't you explain the situation to me? And they go, how do you not know what's happened this week? Are you the only person in town who didn't see the whole thing, the whole parade, the crucifixion, everything? Are you the only one? He goes, why don't you tell me what we're talking about? And it is fascinating what they say. They say, we're talking about Jesus of Nazareth. He was a great prophet. He was powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he would be the Messiah. Have you ever gotten to a spot where all you were left with was, but we had hoped? We had this hope. We had this dream. We thought things were going to work out. But at the end of the day, all we could say was, we had hoped it would work out well. And here's what's funny. In my personal reading time, I'm actually reading through Luke right now. In Luke 18, which is several chapters ago, here's what Jesus says. Jesus says this to his disciples. He says, Jesus took the 12 aside and he told them, we, the group of us, are going to go to Jerusalem. And everything that is written about the prophets, about the Son of Man, will be fulfilled. He will, are you ready? Be delivered to the Gentiles, which means anyone who's not Jewish, the Romans. They will mock him, insult him, spit on him. They will flog him. They will kill him. And on the third day, he will rise again. Everything is coming into order. The stars are aligning. Everything's working. All the evidence is there. And here's what they say. In addition, and it's been 3 days since all this happened. Like, this is the moment where it's all like going to be like happening. This is good. And this is what it says. And some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning. Question, does anybody know why the women went to the tomb on Easter morning? Was it because they wanted to meet Jesus there and talk to him about his crucifixion? Does anybody know why they went there? To finish burying Jesus. They didn't have time to bury him and give him a proper burial on the night of the crucifixion. So even the ones who found the empty tomb were there because they thought that he needed to be finished being buried. But they didn't see him. In fact, they saw angels. They saw angels, and the angel said, he's alive. And some of our companions went to the tomb, and they found it, just as the women said, but they did not see Jesus. What the disciples are struggling with is not the evidence. Everything, if you wanted to, in that day, if you heard what Jesus said to his disciples, if you wanted to see the evidence, is that it's all laid out there perfect. Like, the best conclusion you could make about what's happening now is that Jesus is alive. Here's a little hint. If an angel shows up and says, this is what's going on, you can probably count on that being what's going on, right? Like, if an angel tells you, you can believe it. All the evidence is kind of lining up there in a row, and they're going, but we just don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going on. And the reason is because the disciples believed the wrong things about Jesus. What Jesus was doing was outside their worldview. In fact, their worldview even made room for angels, by the way. None of them were going, there were no angels there. They were all like, yeah, we probably saw an angel. But they did not believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And here's the deal. In our world, I grew up with this. You always see these man on the street type videos where people would hold a microphone out and this question would be, what do you believe about Jesus? What do you think about Jesus? Who was Jesus? And invariably, someone would show up up at the microphone and someone would say, I think he was a great teacher, but I just think he was really misunderstood. I think he was a great teacher. He's just really misunderstood. And what's funny and sad is that what Jesus is revealing about his own disciples is that even they kind of boiled him down to a great teacher who was deeply misunderstood. You know, if you just listened to him and you could hear what he was saying, you would come to some different conclusion. And, you know, we thought he was going to kind of lead us into this new age, and we kind of thought things were going to happen. And, you know, but they just kind of thought he was just a teacher. They just kind of thought he was a guy. They thought he just came like everybody else came, and maybe he can get some sort of thrust, and maybe he can get some sort of movement going, and that would be great. But they just misunderstood what he was trying to do, and so they killed him. And he's going, no, that's what you guys think about me. That's what you were thinking. And here's what's interesting. The moment you take Jesus off the title of Messiah and into the title of just a teacher, there's something you have done for him. You've put him in a category where you can take what you like and leave what you don't. Right? Last fall, I went to a conference in Raleigh at a church, and I listened intently. Every breakout I did, I took notes, and I asked questions. I did this, and I what is it you do? How do you do it? What are you going to do? And when I left, I took some of their advice, and I left whatever I didn't like. Because that's what you do as teachers. Even teachers who are in a position to grade your work. A day is coming where you can go, this is what my teachers always told me, but they're wrong because of 1, 2, or 3, and so now I'm going to walk away from what they think. I'm now, right? A teacher is a person who at best can give you some advice, and sometimes it's helpful. Maybe they can teach you about what's actually going on, but at the end of the day, you're always allowed to just go, I don't think you've got your head screwed on right. I'm going to walk away. And what Jesus is saying is going, no. You don't get to do that for me. You don't get to do that for me. Listen to this line that he says. He says, did not the Messiah have to suffer these things? Wasn't there some sort of thing requiring the Messiah to die for his people? Wasn't there something going on that made God have to come into human history and die for the world so that they can escape whatever they need to escape? Didn't he have to suffer these things? And this is a fascinating line. This is an amazing thing that he says to these two disciples. It says this. And then in verse 27, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, all the big guys in the Old Testament, all those big guys, he explained to them what was said in the Scriptures concerning himself. Now, here's what's fascinating. No teacher on earth would ever do that. We have teachers in the room. We have people that used to be teachers, and no teacher would ever say that about themselves. Could you imagine getting 70% of the way your Western Civ class, and then your professor's like, hey, next week we have a test, but real quick, before you go off to spring break, I just want to let you know, real quick, everything you've learned in Western civilization revolves around me. I'm the character that kind of holds the whole storyline of Western Civ in together. You go, this guy's crazy. I hope he's tenured, because otherwise he will be fired next week. And he probably would wait till he's tenured to say that, because that's how college professors are. Right? No one would say that. No music teacher would go, hey, just by the way, I am the person that all music notes hang together on. Like, the reason there's a tempo at all is because of me. You go, this person's crazy. All right. And that's not what teachers do. But the Messiah does. And Jesus comes along and says, listen, I am the thing everything you've been holding on to hinges on. All those scriptures you hold dear, all those scriptures you learned from as a child, all of human history that you've brought us to this point right here, I'm the character that it all hinges on. And a man like that, you don't take what you like and leave the rest. You either take all of them or you leave all of them. And Jesus is going, you, my own disciples, are not believing the right thing about me. And I think too often we in the church can find ourselves doing the same thing. Going, well, that verse maybe isn't for me. I'm going to stick with these over here. Oh, maybe they said that for back then, but that doesn't work for me anymore. And we put the Bible, we put Jesus in a spot where he's a teacher, but not the Messiah. We can take what we like, but leave what we don't, and that doesn't work. And Jesus is going through this whole charade, this whole thing to drive home this point. Listen to me. You have not really followed what I've been trying to teach you. And that's why we're 3 days out from my crucifixion, and you still think all is lost. And now he's about to do the big reveal. And here's what's fascinating. The Bible says they are downcast. Now, I'm reading a book by the second Born Identity novel. They're written like in the 70s. They're kind of cool books, but it's not like a philosopher book. It's just a guy. It's an adventure book. But right in the middle of the book, I get this line, and I love it. I want to read it to you. It says this: the cruelest thing you can do to a person who's living in panic is to offer him or her a hope that turns out to be false. When the crash comes, it is intolerable. And Jesus' disciples are dealing with that crash that was intolerable. And then in just a couple verses, they're going to be shouting in a room full of the disciples going, it is true. The Lord is risen. And the question is, what changes? What's the cause of that? Now, it's not the evidence, because they've had the evidence all day long and it's not good enough for them. The story goes on in this really interesting spot where Jesus is going to keep walking, but it's getting dark, and there's a really important thing for people back then. You can't just let people wander off in the dark if they're traveling. You just can't do that. If it's nighttime and you see somebody traveling, you have to make room for them. Come stay with us. We will feed you. We will take care of you. Don't travel any further. It's not safe to go. We're not having some stranger die on our account. You're staying here for the night, and then you'll go in the morning. And when you do that, you would provide a meal for this person, and you would experience one of the great intimate moments in ancient times, a meal shared together. So Jesus comes into their home, and he has a meal with them, and he's sitting at the table, and it says he takes the bread, and he breaks it. And at that moment, their eyes are opened. They see it's Jesus himself sitting at the table, holding the bread in his hands. A callback to 3 nights ago where he says, this is my body broken for you. Take and eat and remember me because of the bread. And then he disappears out of their sight. And they look at each other and they go, he's real. It was him all along. And weren't our hearts burning within us as he walked along the road with us, and we didn't even know it? I want to be honest with you. If you go to the average person who's not a Christian, they'll say, the reason I don't believe is because there's not enough evidence. The evidence isn't good enough. And here's the deal. There's a lot of good evidence to be a Christian. There's a lot of people who've done a lot of work to really prove that I think the best evidence out there says that there is a God, that Jesus was real, He did live on earth, He did raise from the dead. There's a lot of good evidence for that. But if you talk to the average person who's a Christian, you say, what was the thing that finally bowled you over? What was the thing that finally made you go, okay, yeah, Jesus is real, and I'm going to follow Him forever? Most often, you will not hear, well, the evidence just made it to where I couldn't not believe in Him. The evidence was there that I just had to believe in Him. Most often, you will get a story that is a little more subjective in nature. Eric Metaxas is a great author. He's out there now. He's a great thinker, has written books on Bonhoeffer and miracles and all sorts of things, and he's kind of an apologist. I don't know if he considers himself an apologist, but he's a really smart guy, really helpful, really good thinker, helps me out a lot. And he shared his testimony once, and his testimony is all about a dream he had that has this fish in it and some sort of thing. And he woke up in the morning, and he thought, it's so obvious now. And I hear that, and I go, I have no idea what that means. I have no idea what that's about, and I don't care. And that's his story. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a men's breakfast, and I'm going to be sharing my testimony. And my story is a series of events, a series of chapters of my life where after 3 or 4 years, I look up one day and I realize, oh, He's been there all along. He's been walking with me along as I went through. I had no idea, but now it's so clear to me. And as Christians, what we need to do is understand that Jesus is a God who walks along the path with us. And as Christians and as non-Christians get to the point where they realize, oh, it's so clear now, Jesus has been with me all along. It changes our lives. Something happens, and we just go, in a moment, He was there all along. And my heart was burning within me because I knew that God loved me. And He would not leave me. He would go anywhere for me. And that is what's so beautiful about Easter, by the way. The death of Jesus tells us there's literally nowhere that God will not go for you. And the resurrection tells us, Easter tells us, that Jesus can literally do anything for you. There's nothing He can't rescue you from. There's nowhere He can't bring you back from because He came back from the grave. And what we need as Christians is not enough evidence where we can say, we are now smarter than the world around us. Well, we need Jesus to show up for us, where our eyes open and we say, oh, it's so clear now. He's been here all along. Here's the prayer. The last line of the prayer I read at the sunrise service this morning. I liked it. I want to read it for you. It says, open my eyes to this moment, that in every moment I may know You as the one who is always present. Jesus does not leave us to our own devices. Jesus goes along with us, and He walks with us every step of the way. Father, thank You for this day.